proclamation. Can I make a brief comment regarding the proclamation?
Is she okay? Yeah, brief comment. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. The proclamation, the proclamation is good as it stands. I just wanted to add some facts to it. The Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA, first proposed in 1923, is an amendment to the United States Constitution that guarantees equality of rights under the law for all persons regardless of sex. As of January 27, 2020, the ERA has satisfied the requirements of Article 5 of the Constitution for ratification, passage by 2/3 of each House of Congress, and approval by 3/4 of the states. Leading constitutional scholars agree that the ERA is now part of the Constitution. Because of issues raised about its unique ratification process, the Archivist of the United States has not yet taken the final ministerial step of publishing the ERA in the Federal Register with certification of its ratification as the 28th Amendment. The President may order the Archivist to publish. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion and a second for the consent calendar.
Make a motion to move the item.
Thank you. The item's
Second.
been moved. Thank you. The item's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
On the motion to, on the motion by Vice President Rentila and seconded by Director Weiner to approve consent calendar items 1 through 4, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is regular calendar item 5, to receive a presentation on West County Wastewater's financial forecast. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments or requests to speak on this item?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 5, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Thank you. Acting Deputy General Manager Justin Lovell will lead us through the presentation.
All right, here we go. Good evening, President Alvarado, Vice President Rentila, and members of the board. Once again, I'm Justin Lovell. Tonight I want to give a presentation on our financial forecast. We did give a similar presentation to the Finance Administration Committee in June. So there are some updated numbers here. We do have preliminary final results for fiscal year 2024. So those numbers have been updated and which have impacted our assumptions for the next several years. So I do want to, we'll just see if this works for me. Okay, it works. So just to start off, I want to just share with you on what our spending priorities are for the organization. As we are an independent special district, we have a singular purpose of the collection and treatment of wastewater, as we are operated under the California Sanitary District Act. And so, priority number 1 is that our operating revenues cover our operating expenses, which they do. So I want to say that we are in the clear, or we do not have any kind of structural deficit at this time. So I think that's the first good news. So that's priority number 1, is that we have to pay our operating expenses. And so we pay those through our operating revenues, which are the rates, the sewer rates that our ratepayers pay. The second priority and obligation is that we maintain a debt service coverage ratio of 1.2. So what this means is once we receive our revenues, we pay all our operating expenses, then we have net operating revenues. So our net operating revenues divided by our annual debt service payment, basically it means we have to have our net revenues have to cover 120% of our annual debt service payment. And so this is a requirement for our SRF loans that we have through the State Water Resources Control Board, as well as it's required as part of our our bonds, our 2021 wastewater revenue bonds. So once we make the debt service coverage ratio, then the next priority is we pay our debt service, all right? So we're paying the loans, our annual debt service, the interest and principal of the loans that we have. And then the last priority, the last, whatever's left over is that we're able to pay capital expenditures. So that's, vehicles, equipment, and through our capital projects. So I have a lot of numbers here. I'm not going to go into every single row or every single number, but if you look at the blue, that first part on the left side of the column, that's our current rate plan, which goes through fiscal year 2026. So we are entering year 4 of a 5-year rate plan. So this year, the sewer rates increased 5.5%. The current 5-year rate plan was adopted in 2021. And we have one more year of fiscal year 26 will be the last year of the current rate plan. So everything in the gray is a future rate plan that has yet to be determined. So this is going to be a future decision that as the board that you're going to be able, that you will make. There will be several more meetings. Over the next year or so, we will get a consultant on board to help us determine what the priorities are and what are some of the rate scenarios. This is going to be happening after our strategic plan, so that and the strategic plan is also going to help determine what some of the funding or the priorities and what resources we're going to need. So that's going to be another item that we can talk about later tonight. So if we're just looking at, the top row is our rate increases. This is our estimated gross revenues, O&M expenses, and net revenues. I just do want to highlight the drop in gross revenue, even though we're having rate increases. A part of that in from fiscal year 24 to 25 is that we reduced the assumption of interest earnings. Even though right now our investments in our pooled investment portfolio, whether it's CAMP or California class, that are earning about 5.2% annual interest. In fiscal year 24, we're under about $2.3 million in interest earnings. We've reduced that in our assumptions to $500,000. So we, depending on what happens, these numbers can change, but we do want to be on the more conservative side. So that's kind of one of those where you can see those larger drops. We are assuming O&M expenses is a flat 4% increase year over year. And then at the end, you see the net revenues. So seeing that the net revenues are, 8.9 million, 9.2, so that's good. That means we have enough to cover our debt service. But then you look at the bottom number here is net revenues after debt service. That's not very much to pay for our capital projects, to add on to the capital projects. And that's 1.5 million, and we're fairly consistent over these next several years. And so in our last sewer rate plan in 2021, we did a 10-year forecast. And so what we were assuming at that time, and I'll get into a little bit more detail about what some of the assumption changes were, that through fiscal year 27 through fiscal year 31, that next 5-year rate plan, we were hoping that we could keep a steady 3% annual rate increase. But if you look at the numbers here based on what has been happening, that's not enough to pay for the capital projects that we want to deliver. And I'll have some graphs in the next slides that represent that. So in our current state, just show us our debt service, that is going to be static for right about till 2036 when we pay off our first SRF loans. Then it'll reduce in our 2021 wastewater revenue bonds. Fiscal year 24 was the first year we paid the full debt service, which is a little over $4 million. So it's going to be for our current loan. So if we ever needed to add additional, we want to take on additional debt for additional projects, it just means that we would have to have more revenue to cover our debt service. So go on to the next slide here. So this is, if we're going out, when we get out 2 to 3 years, it's very kind of unknown. We're looking at a crystal ball here. And sometimes it's kind of foggy, and when we're getting out 3 years plus. So here, if this graph is representing those blue bars are the net operating revenues, so that's good. That means we're covering our revenues cover operating expenses. The green bar is our debt service coverage requirement. So ideally, we would like to have that blue bar above the green line. So right now, we're just on our forecast, we're meeting our minimum requirement. And then the blue line is available cash. So if you notice from fiscal year 24 to 25, we're spending quite a bit of money, and that's in our capital program, and that's by design. We are, I think the next slide will talk a little bit, shows a little bit more detail about how much money we're spending on our capital program, and that's largely because of the Clean and Green project. Right? We borrowed money to pay for it. It's in active construction, so we are spending the most we've ever spent as an agency on capital projects in any one fiscal year. So it was about $36 million last year. In fiscal year 24, we anticipate spending about $37 million in capital in fiscal year 25. Then what happens, once that Clean and Green project is done, and once we've spent all of our existing bond proceeds, without making any adjustments, if we continued spending about $3 million a year, or $3 to $4 million a year on the capital, we're going to deplete the amount of available cash that we have. And so that's something that we don't want to get ourselves in that situation, because over time we want to continue investing in our system. So there's going to be continued need to deliver capital projects. So here I just want to share with you what our estimated debt service coverage ratio is going to be over the next couple of years. So these next few years, we're just meeting our minimum debt service coverage requirements. Ideally, we would like to see, for the ratings agencies, if you have a debt service coverage requirement of 1.6, anything higher than 1.6 doesn't give you any additional benefits. So I think that would be over time, that would be our goal, to maintain a debt service coverage ratio of 1.6. So in the future, if we needed to borrow some money for a larger capital project, we would have the ability to borrow it without raising additional rates. So at this point, based on our current forecast, we're meeting our requirements, but we don't have any additional cushion or wiggle room. So go to the next slide here. So this is just sharing you, this is kind of the part of, from the graph, kind of just all the total cash and what we're spending. I do want to highlight that we are, as part of our analysis, we are taking away, reserving what's required as part of our reserve. So the board has adopted a reserves policy. So we do need to keep money set aside for our reserves. And so those are that less reserved requirements. So that's money, we're not draining our bank accounts completely, right? So I think that's also, we want to make sure that we are being financially prudent for the organization. So the ending cash available so from my perspective, I've talked to other, our municipal advisors and others who work in local government finance. I think our sweet spot of ending cash available would to maintain about $10 million. So that way, if any big unexpected expense comes up beyond what would be covered under our reserves, we would be okay and be able to meet that. So if we continue at the rate we're going, spending about $3 million a year on the capital, we're going to really draw down that ending available cash by the end of 2031. So this isn't necessarily saying it means I'm telling you this now because we have time to figure out to make adjustments. So it's the next 2 years we're okay. We're going to give us 2 years to come up with what are some different solutions or some ideas that we're going to be able going to be able to do. So the other piece that I did write in the report, just wanted to highlight, some of the assumptions changes that have occurred over these last couple years is the cost of chemicals have greatly increased. This over in the last 2 years has been 133% increase in chemical costs. So our most recent chemical per gallon of what they're using for the essentially the hyperchlorite that is going to disinfect the wastewater is now at $3.21 a gallon. 2 years ago it was like a little over $1 a gallon. So it's more than doubling in price. And so that's one area that we've almost doubled. We used to spend about $400,000 a year, $500,000 a year, depending on the water. How much rain came. The more water comes in, the more chemical they have to use to disinfect. Now we're up to about $900,000 a year for chemicals. Electricity is another area that's been really that's increased greatly. We've seen just with our electricity usage is about the same, but the cost has gone up, about 18%, and some bills I've seen as high as 30% increase from the year over year. And then lastly is related to our Clean and Green project is that we have temporary dewatering through a contractor. We were assuming in our financial forecast 3 years ago that would be about $2 million a year. That cost is now about $4.8 million a year. And we're going to continue to have that dewatering cost until the new digesters from the Clean and Green project are able to come online and start accepting the sludge and digesting that gas. And so that will be, we're hoping that it'll be the end, in the fall, that we'll be able to stop using Synagro, and then that operating cost, that $4.8 million a year, will go away. In the Clean and Green project as well, there's going to be some significant savings. We recently connected the solar power here at Hilltop, as well as the other lift stations that have solar as part of the Clean and Green project, connected them to the grid. So we're able to start receiving the benefit of solar, but there's some additional energy savings projects as part of the Clean and Green that haven't been implemented yet. And so we will receive cost savings as part of that, but we have to wait till the Clean and Green's done. And as part of that is the battery backup, which is going to be the last piece that's going to be installed. And so it's just our cost savings will be realized. They will happen. They've been delayed. And so that's just impacting our current amount that we're able to dedicate towards the capital program this next year or two. All right, so this is just a share of how much we're spending on our capital program. So really the message here is that without additional funding sources, we have limited resources to dedicate towards our capital program once we spend all of our bond proceeds. So we are anticipating to spend about $37 million in fiscal year 25. But in fiscal year 26 and 27, you see it's very small. We're looking at $3 million, $3.5, $4 million a year. The purple bar underneath, that's what the identified need is. We've identified collectively, this is a cumulative bar graph, so it's not like every year. It's just every year that we don't do capital projects that we think we need to do, it just adds on to the next year and just continues to be more expensive. So we have over $100 million of identified capital project needs, but we don't have funding for it at this point in time. So every year we can do a little bit, but it's really not making a dent into that, into the unfunded capital program. So that will be something that we're going to come back later to the board in September, talk about the priorities and what projects we're going to be moving forward with these next couple of years. So it's not where we want to be, but the Clean and Green project has accelerated our capital delivery. We're doing quite a bit of work through Clean and Green, but it didn't tackle everything that we've already identified that we need to do. The master plan that you recently received an update on, that will identify essentially the next 20 years of projects, since that will give us a pathway and an idea of what we need to do and how we can tackle the maintenance items and make sure our system is operating the best that it can. All right, so let me just talk a little bit about what we've been doing with the bond proceeds. So we received a $90 million wire in September of 2021, and we couldn't spend all that money immediately. So what have we done is that we've invested those bond proceeds. Mostly it was in some money market accounts. It wasn't getting a whole lot, but then the interest rates started increasing, so we started getting more. And then we invested $60 million of our bond proceeds in $20 million tranches in U.S. Treasuries. So as a passive investment, we knew we were going to get, it was an interest return on those bond proceeds. And so what we've earned on $60 million is over $2.4 million in interest. However, not to get too deep in the weeds about all of tax-exempt bonds, so there is what's called arbitrage, which is essentially the amount of earnings that you can earn on an investment. So anything that's a negative arbitrage is you haven't been earning as much interest as that you're paying on your loan. And then positive arbitrage is that through investing, you're earning more money in investments than what you're paying on interest from your debt. So our current tax liability that we're going to have to cut a check to the IRS in a couple of years, it's usually about 5 years after to maintain our tax exempt status, we'll have to pay $1.67 million out of those interest earnings. We do have additional interest earnings, so anything that we've earned beyond that $1.67 million. So we've done some strategies that have actually helped us limit that tax liability. So we think that $1.67 million is our maximum tax liability we'll have with arbitrage. So what we've done in the last couple months, we're in a very unique interest rate situation. So we've invested the remaining bond proceeds that we haven't spent yet, it's about $37 million, in what's called, it's through the Treasury Department, called State and Local Government Securities. The acronym SLUGS is what we call it. So it's a variable rate interest. The current interest rate is 4.12%. And that is money that is earned tax-free, essentially. So we don't accrue a tax liability for any interest earnings on money that we've deposited in the slugs. Historically, slugs have earned very little interest. We're talking like 0.2%, 0.3%. Because of the interest rate environment with where the feds have set the treasury rates, the slugs are earning a very good interest rate, and so that is money that any additional earnings, we'll be able to reinvest that money back into our capital program. So we think we'll get about another probably about $2 to $3 million that we'll be able to put back into the capital program, as well as just to mention on the Clean and Green project, we are expecting to receive money from a PG&E program. It's called SGIP. I have it written down in the staff report, just don't remember off the top of my head. But it's essentially a reimbursement, so we'll get several million from SGIP. We'll also have applied for, which is the IRA, which is the investment. So as a federal act to get, it's a direct pay back for solar projects. And so we're going to get a couple million out of that one. But we won't get it until the project's complete. So we do anticipate that we'll get several $1 million reimbursement, but we don't want to spend that potential future money until we've received the checks. So we didn't fold those into our forecast here. So once we do receive that money, then that's additional money that we'll be able to, it's not enough for our capital projects, but we will be able to do a little bit more on our capital projects in the near future. So just to kind of reiterate, what are our resources? What are the options we have to spend to fund our capital program? Number one is what I just mentioned is our bond proceeds, those investment earnings. Those are what we will be able to spend, but we want to wait until Clean and Green is done. And then we'll look at whatever is left over. We have more than enough projects that are authorized to spend in the bond funds that we can spend it on. Federal funding, there's not a lot, and it's really hard to come by. So there's grants, there's community project funding, there's congressionally directed spending, which is otherwise known as earmarks. That's also a very competitive process, even though you can get it on there, but it's really difficult to make it through appropriations. Then there's also WIFIA, which is through the EPA, which is a loan program, a long-term low-interest loan. That's typically used to fund about 50% of a project cost, and then you use other sources to help fund it. On the state side, there's also potential for grants. and SRF, which is the State Revolving Fund, that we have a couple loans in. It's a long process, but it's a good program if you're able to get it in because the interest rates are pretty low. But unfortunately, it's all funded through the EPA, and there's just they're high demand. There's more project need than there are resources for the SRF, but it is available. And then lastly, we can always, as a board, you could make a decision that we want to pay more of our capital projects through cash funding, and that would be through increasing the sewer rates. But as I mentioned before, it's our priority number one is operating expenses. So it would be whatever's left over after we pay our operating expenses that we'd be able to dedicate towards our capital program. So let's see, I think that's the end of the presentation. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, before we begin with questions, I'm going to ask Director Sudduth, as Chair of the Finance and Administrative Committee, do you have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Justin, for the presentation. I think I'm going to keep it brief because I believe you addressed the issues that we brought to your attention at the meeting. And I've asked Director King Meredith to actually speak to a couple of anything that was left out. But thank you for thoroughly addressing what we spoke about at the committee meeting. Dr. King Meredith, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Sudduth. From what my notes that I'm looking at right now, I think everything was covered at this point. The recommendation that we had asked for you all to come to the full board like you have done. At my notes, I do not see anything that was more or less needed to go more into discussion at this point, so I think it was well received from our end. Thank you.
Thank you, Director King Meredith. Director Weiner, questions, comments?
Yeah, of course, I have some questions. It was a lot of information packed in wonderful graphs, and I thought the report was readable and understandable, but I do have some thoughts regarding some of the things that were revealed. In the summary of the forecast, I guess the staff report portion of the document, you point out that assumptions regarding O&M were underestimated, and I think you covered the problems with costs, unexpected costs, and overruns on some of our projects. None of it was due to employee or work-related problems. And so going forward, when we have to talk about rates and how much we raise them, I think I would be appreciate if we would leave the employees, which are the largest chunk of operational and maintenance expenses, out of any calculation to reduce costs to support lower rates. In your report summary, you say that West County Wastewater is able to make debt service coverage requirements and lower the debt service coverage ratio. The lower cash funds are available to pay for additional capital projects. Over the long term, staff would like to have a debt service coverage ratio of 1.6 or greater. Staff then lists revenue sources that could be used: rates, grants, loans, and bonds. Of the four, wouldn't loans and bonds require larger rate increases, or larger rate increases or finding more grants. Am I understanding that?
They could. So, I mean, I think it's balancing a project that has a useful life of 30 to 40 years. It will be more expensive because some of them are big dollar amounts. You know, it could be $30 million to do, say, we have to completely replace a force main. It's cheaper to do it now than to do it 5 years from now because we know the costs are going to increase. We know that just recently, you know, just through inflation, the construction costs have really gone up. We were able to lock in our clean and green construction costs at a very advantageous time because if we're doing the same project now, it would cost more than what we've committed to as part of that contract. So it's a balancing act because it's how much can we do pay as you go, which is trying to keep the rates a little bit lower. But there may be opportunities to do several projects or a bigger chunk of projects in a shorter amount of time that have a longer lifespan. And it may be worth it based on the interest rate environment to borrow money and pay for that over time. And I think that was the decision from the board to issue bonds, you know, 3 years ago.
Thank you.
Justin, if I it's really reiterating what Justin just said about you borrow the money, much like the Clean and Green project he mentioned. We're able to do, say, a sizable piece of work now at a lower cost. And if we chose to borrow money and then spend it on luxury items, things we don't really need, like if it was your personal finances, a vacation and a third car, yeah, it's going to cost a lot more money in the future because we're still going to need those important infrastructure replacements anyway. So it would be in addition to that. As long as we're borrowing money for infrastructure on a cycle that we know will need to be replaced within the next 10, 15, 20 years, then in general, you're going to be able to save some money, especially when the interest rates are this low.
And so the assumption there is that prices will always go up. Is that?
That yes, likely that the prices will go up and also that the failures will increase. And when we have failures, and actually we'll hear a little bit about that later, they end up driving up our O&M costs significantly. So doing a number of capital projects, some of them end up decreasing the impact on the O&M budget.
Thank you for the clarification. All right, in your chart titled Revenue and Expenses, you are projecting, you mentioned that you were, O&M was 4% increase as opposed to 3%. I know they went up regularly, I just didn't know what percent you were predicting. And then it turns out that I did a compounding experiment, and it turns out that we've increased, since I've been on the board, our rates have almost doubled in the last 8 years if we compound for all of the rate increases. So when we talk about raising rates, which your report seems to imply that we will definitely have to, if we want to continue our capital improvement, we should also have a study about how much our ratepayers can absorb, if there's a way to make a determination on that when we do the studies for rate increases. And just to clarify, the bottom line on that one report where all of our interest and all of our reserves and were taken into account, and then there was like $2 million, $3 million on the bottom of that chart. That's just cash available. That's not reserves, or that's just unspent revenue that we have there to cushion some unexpected. But our reserves are there for, the reserve policy was meant to cover unexpected costs as well. Is that not true?
It is. So we have several items of reserve. There's the O&M reserve, which is really to help us weather the first 6 months of the year because we don't get our first payment from the county for sewer rates till December. And then there's a kind of a capital reserve, there's a emergency reserve. So that is the idea. But for kind of comfort level of, if we ever need to borrow more money, the rating agencies, those who are loaning us the money, if it's going to be through a bank or through the state, they're going to be looking at that bottom line too. So it's like, well, what's your ability to continue paying what you promised to pay and keep your system operable, right? So it's, having a larger cushion looks more favorable.
And is that part of the 1.6 or 1.2 reserve? I mean, not reserve, but whatever we call that.
Well, it factors into the number. So like the larger bottom line cash that we have, it also depends on how much, that bottom line is also assuming how much we would spend on the capital program. So if we said we're going to stop spending on capital, yeah, that number is going to grow. But we know we cannot stop spending on our capital program. We have to do something every year. Otherwise, it's just going to get more and more expensive, or potential for system issues that could impact our permit.
Okay. One more question. Why did dewatering double in price?
Well, there's a couple factors. One is part of the inflationary cost. The other one is rain. There was a lot more water. And so to be able to process the amount of solids that was coming out of our system, they brought in 2 belt presses. So that effectively doubled the cost
I see.
for periods of time during the year.
Wow. And then IRA stands for Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes, I just looked at
Okay.
I just looked it up again. Inflation Reduction Act, and then the SGIP is Self-Generation Incentive Program.
Oh.
That's through PG&E.
I just know that program has the worst name ever.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Weiner. Vice President Rentila?
Oh, thank you. Looking at the historical operating results, I see that under sewer connections, it's 399,000, and then it goes up to 400,000 in the following year. Are those projections from rate increases or from population or building increases?
So that is, we're just assuming that the capacity charges are going to stay flat. There could be a large development. We know, Hilltop's on schedule for development. That 400,000 that we projected, that's been fairly consistent on the amount, and that's money that goes into the capital program. That can only be spent on the system, on system improvement. So if there is a large development, say Hilltop does happen, and they're going to build so many units, based on the sewer capacity charges, then we would get a large chunk of money based on that project. But that's speculative at this point so we don't want to assume that into our forecast.
And can you tell us what the cost is for connections today?
I'll give you a ballpark figure, so like a single-family home, and it depends on their water meter size. So if they have 1-inch meter or they have a 3/4 inch, it's about $3,000.
Okay, and are we still offering the rebate?
Well, so the pipes program, that still exists. That's part of our annual budget for those who are wanting to replace the sewer lateral. So that's still in there, and that's baked into the numbers, and that's been part of the board approval to authorize up to $400,000 on that annually.
And then I wanted to ask on the cash balances sheet there, for 2024, you have 107.8 million. And if you subtract the ending cash availability, that's at 48.7 million, you're left with 59, almost 60 million. I was wondering, for 2025, we have 68.7 million. And I was wondering how we got to that number.
Let's see here. I was pulling, using it from the spreadsheet that had all the kind of the detailed numbers. We're looking at pulling that from total cash, and then we factor in our CIP or so one thing I am didn't mention in the presentation is that through our bonds, we have the ability to, if our operating expenses are a little bit higher than anticipated, like they are right now, we have what's called a rate stabilization fund. So we've set aside money in the rate stabilization fund, and we use that as a calculation basis to prove to the rating agencies that we're meeting our 1.2 debt service coverage ratio. So we're recognizing that as revenue. We're paying ourselves, but it's not real revenue that's coming in. So that might be some of the difference that you're seeing, that we're anticipating that we might have to do about $4 million in fiscal year '24.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions, but I want to thank you for that financial forecast. It was very enlightening and good reading material. And you've given us a good forecast on what we can expect, which was good. So thank you for that. And there is no action on this item, so next item.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Justin. Okay, next on the agenda is regular calendar item 6, to receive an update on the strategic plan through fiscal year 2024. Madam Clerk, have you received any written comments or requests to speak on this item?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 6, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Thank you. This will be an ensemble effort, and I believe that Acting Deputy General Manager Justin Lovell will kick it off and turn it over to Victoria.
Great, well, good evening again. I don't want to spend too long up here. I will just do a brief introduction on strategic plan before I pass it over to Victoria. So our we just entered year 5 of our 5-year strategic plan. This update will be talking about, give us a selection of some of the items that we've accomplished over the last fiscal year, fiscal year 2024. So this doesn't include everything. I'd have to say is commend all of our staff for the amount of work that we've done, and Victoria will show some of that in our slides. But just to reiterate on how the strategic plan is structured. So our strategic plan is a series of goals. We have 6 goals, and under each goal are objectives. And then under those objectives, we, on the staff level, on an annual basis, come up with milestones. So those are the specific actions that tie to the objectives that we work on. And as part of the strategic plan, a lot of the items that we've been working on over the last 4 years, some of them have been completed, but we're not here just to check the box. A lot of the items on the strategic plan end up being rolled into our operations, are things that we do or some things that we're going to continue to do on a year-to-year basis. It's not just we did it one time and we're putting it on the shelf. A lot of the ideas or the goals and objectives from the strategic plan are really shaping us on the direction we want to be as an organization, helping us build capacity on the staff side. I can say from where we are, as Andrew has talked about, we're an organization in transformation. The existing strategic plan has helped us get there, and as part of the as the board adopted policy is directing us as an organization on the way we want to be. So with that, I want to just pass it over to Victoria so she can get us started.
Thank you. All right. Good evening, President Alvarado, Vice President Rentia, members of the board. My name is Victoria Donati, Associate Management Analyst, and thank you for the opportunity to share an update on the fiscal year 2024 strategic plan. Justin already gave a reminder of how the hierarchy and the structure works of the 5-year strategic plan, so I will be highlighting some milestones from each goal and sharing some photos of the accomplishments that we have made thus far. And I just wanted to remind you as well that you will see a lot of photos within the presentation, and I just wanted to remind you that it may not directly be tied to a specific milestone, but it has everything to do and is a representation of what we are trying to accomplish and relates to each of the goals. Okay, so goal number 1 is infrastructure strategy and performance. Oh, sorry.
Try this.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight, so there's 6 objectives associated with this goal, and we did have many milestones that were completed, but I want to highlight just a couple, and that one being the completion of the implementation and integration of the CityWorks computerized maintenance management system, which is also known as CMMS, and the development of plans and SOPs, which are standard operating procedures for injury, illness prevention, spill emergency response, exposed lines, and valve turning program. These photos are the construction progress of the Clean and Green project. There's sort of the progress that we've made. And this is a photo of a replacement vehicle for our collection system operations, a trash pump for maintenance and operations, generators, light towers, and pumps and hoses. And this is our maintenance crew performing maintenance. And this is line locating training. This was conducted for our CSO crew, basically to identify if there is a defect and be able to identify it above ground to know where they need to dig for the defect. And our Vector truck cleaning out debris. And then that brings us to strategic goal 2, environmental stewardship. And there's 3 objectives associated with this goal. And many of the milestones that were associated with this goal were completed in prior years, and some of them are still ongoing. And Kate will touch more on our community efforts. And this is something we wanted to highlight. It's the North Richmond Collaborative Shoreline Adaptation Plan that was completed in November 2023. This is a project that we're extremely excited about, and we still have much more work to do. We completed our San Francisco Bay Restoration Grant deliverables back in December of 2023. And that brought us to completing the 30% design drawings for phase 1, which is the portion of the project that will sit right in front of our treatment plant. And last month, the board gave permission to accept the next round of SFBRA grant funding to pick up where we left off and complete the next phase of the project. Oh, and our next steps on that, we will be issuing a request for proposals within the next month or 2. And then this is just a picture out of the bay, and there was a tribal engagement portion of the SFBRA grant deliverables, and it represents the Confederate villages of LaShawn, and that's what you see on the upper right. And then some pictures from our community cleanup for Earth Day. Another picture of Earth Day cleanup. This is an aerial shot of the solar panels here at Hilltop, which is part of the Clean and Green project. And our first electric vehicle, the Ford Lightning, and our 2 charging stations, one public facing and one behind the gate. And then we also conducted an electric vehicle charging survey for staff to help with the planning and development of an electric vehicle charging policy. This is some photos of CSO performing preventative maintenance and root removal. And some photos from the lab. They received the environmental laboratory accreditation, and it's great for staying in compliance with lab standards. And we are happy that 2 of our lab interns are now temporary staff. And I will pass it to Justin to go over the first few slides.
All right, well, hello again. Thank you, Victoria. So just briefly, we've been doing quite a bit of work on the financial viability. Just the previous item is something we do annually on the financial forecast, but we've also been doing other kind of one-time items and cleanup. One of the examples is that Finance Division has been working quite a bit on updating our general ledger structure. It's just how do we categorize the different expenses and revenues and updating it, making it easier. It's an ongoing process. We hope to have that completed later this year, working with our finance system. But our goal is to make it easier to get reports, to really get the financial data and information to our staff. That falls under the enhanced financial reporting. And then we'll continue to evaluate our rate structure, and we're doing still quite a bit of work on just internal policies and procedures related to finance, and how do we manage our finances, and how do we make sure that we meet the best practices. So those are continuing ongoing. So just a few of the examples of we've made quite a bit of progress on how do we internally report our capital project expenses, and we now have developed monthly reporting procedures, and we're continuing, as I just mentioned, continuing to update a lot of our policies, or a lot of procedures within the Finance Division. Just lastly, just to highlight, so we do like to get recognized every once in a while, and so we did for our last fiscal year budget, which is a 2-year budget for fiscal year 24-25. Takes a little bit of time, but we did receive the Distinguished Budget Award presentations through the Government Finance Officers Association. So I just wanted to thank staff for the work to get that done. So just lastly, just an example of some of the graphs of the financial information that we're able to put together that we share internally with staff of expenses on. This is a CIP expenses. All right, and then lastly, is that going to be back to you, Victoria? Just on the grant funding pursuits, is we currently have one grant. We've had a couple, but there's opportunities in the future. As we continue to look, getting outside funding is a good thing. There is some administrative work that we have to do, but a lot of times we determine that it's worth it. These are just a few of the many partners that we've been working with, or some of the funding agencies through the state or federal that we've been working to secure additional funds for our projects. So I think that ends on the finance side, and now I'll turn it back over to Victoria.
Thank you. And just to add to that, we did receive our application was approved for that next round of San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority funding, and so our next steps, like I said, are going to be issuing an RFP. And then that brings us to Goal 4, which is Information Systems and Data Management. And let's see here, there are 6 objectives along with this goal. And just to highlight a couple of milestones that were completed, we finished the emptying of the storage pods for record management, completed the scanning of the plans and maps, and reduced the use of paper by implementing Laserfish, which is our document management repository software. And then this just shows, these are the different software programs that we've implemented over the past few years, and we use these every single day. And I know that you wanted to say something, right? Okay.
Just as you look at the number of software programs, it's a lot, right? We have done quite a bit to manage all the different data in the programs that we have. And so just one of the things that we look at with our software is we're continually evaluating what software is working. So sometimes we get something, we use it for several years, and we determine, well, this isn't the right product for us anymore, or we're going to stop using it. But so all of these are programs that we're using every day, and it's helped us quite a bit about managing all the work that we're doing. And each has unfortunately, there's not one software that does everything. So we do have to have multiple software programs because we have many different needs within the organization.
Thank you. All right, and this is a screenshot of dashboards in CityWorks. And so we've now, we went live back in October of 2023 with the software. So we've had some time now to actually retrieve our data that we've been putting in there every day. And so as you can see, the larger screenshot represents by status, work orders that were completed. And then the two lower are categorized by corrective, preventative, or reactive maintenance, and CSO, and then operations and maintenance is on the right. So we're really excited to pull this data and be able to have reporting for this. This is some screenshots from our GIS database, which is Geographical Information Systems. And this is basically our home page. And then along with that, there is the I&I, which is the inflow and infiltration priority map. This is from the 2016 to 2017 master plan study. And this helps identify what areas within our system have pipes that are inundated with I&I. And one serves as the bigger priority on the legend, which you aren't able to see because of the Zoom. And I also wanted to add that Mohammed, I know, will be giving an update on GIS, I think in September. So there'll be more to come on that. And then this is a screenshot of our collection system map. And this is a GIS heat map, which illustrates the density of manholes in a given area. So this is our service area. And for example, in the brighter area of San Pablo, it has the highest density per physical area. And then I have a screenshot of eBuilder, which is our project management software. And it just shows the projects off to the left and what phase they're in. And I'm sure there's a lot more involved in that, but I just wanted to give you a visual representation of that as well. And then Laserfish, like I mentioned before, this is our document control repository, and this is where staff goes in if they want to start a contract. They start that in there, and then along with any other official documents are in there. And this is Monday.com, which is our agency-wide collaboration tool. Different divisions use it for different things. This is what planning and support services, just an example, what they use it to track their key performance indicators on a monthly basis. And okay, that brings us to goal 5, operational optimization. And there's 6 objectives along with this goal. And just a couple of milestones to highlight. We conducted an employee engagement survey, developed and implemented a standard internal reporting system for safety and compliance, and developed and implemented an operator and training program. This is an of 2023, where we went over the strategic plan and really focused on core values. This was our spring all-hands meeting, which had a big focus on our diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging program, and we were able to meet virtually with our DEI-AB consultant, Diamond Strategies. And I did receive a short update from Amani and HR on this, and we've completed phase 1 of the project and just completed assessments, and phase 2 will consist of strategic planning, and we will be meeting for an organization-wide training in a couple weeks on the 21st. And then these are just some photos from the board and staff lunch that we had at the plant. And more trainings on CMMS, and I think that's confined space training off to the right. And potlucks, more trainings, and that was our employee celebration that was in July of last year. And then just some HR efforts. We just had our worldwide wellness, and there was a career fair, the employee engagement survey, there was a webinar for CalPERS, and the HR huddle, which they all met at the plant classroom, and then a student internship opportunity, just some efforts from HR. And then we celebrated Women's History Month and Administrative Professionals Day. And just more photos of trainings and just staff having fun. And then this was a great accomplishment too. Lakima, project manager, completed the Hilltop office refresh, so it looks really good. All right, and that concludes my part, and I'll give it to Kate for goal 6.
Yeah, so you're going to do the quickie?
Oh, yeah, you can.
Thanks. So strategic goal, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
It's nice to see you. So yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about this last strategic goal, number 6, which is community image. And you want to flip to the slide? So there were 3 goals for us here. The first objective, I should say, was to complete and continue to implement the communications master plan. We are looking onto our 5th year of the communications plan, so we've been working through that. Objective 2, to develop and implement effective external communication tools. So that also is ongoing. We continue to do that. We have increased our presence at community events. You may have noticed, hopefully you have, throughout the district. We've even added some new ones. We had our 2nd annual Earth Day community cleanup this year, so that is a new external event that we've added. And then also the last one, objective 3, is to develop and implement effective internal communications. And we've done a lot with that. We are going to have the Drop newsletter will have its 3rd birthday next month. So we've been putting the Drop out every Friday for 3 years. And then recently, we started the Drop podcast. So that also comes out every Friday. It's an audio version of the newsletter. But this gives us the chance to interview our staff. It's a little bit more personal. And then the very most recently, it's been going on for a couple weeks, is we've managed to figure out how to text all of our staff on Friday afternoons, and they get a link right to the podcast. So every Friday afternoon, they can click on that and get all their news. So the slide that Victoria has up now reminds us of all of the community partnerships that we've developed over the years. You'll see here that, for instance, the watershed project's on there. You know, now that we're going to all these events over and over again, we're starting to, make those connections and see some of these other organizations tabling at the events. The county, we're friends with the Parks District now because of that community cleanup. We're partnering with them. So just to remind us of all those partnerships that we have. And the next slide is it's kind of a colorful display of all the ways that we engage with staff and our community. So we create themed virtual backgrounds and send them out to you and to leadership. We put them up on the website so folks can use those in their virtual meetings. And a lot of those we do based on what you proclaim here in the boardroom. So those proclamations don't go unheard or unnoticed. They actually are the fodder for a lot of those backgrounds that we do and things that we put on our social media pages. We have a whole library of West County Wastewater Spotify playlists, so we kind of have fun with that. We take song requests from our employees. We celebrated the 1st anniversary of the Drop podcast in February, so we partied about that a little bit and celebrated that. And then also we have a representation up there of polls. We conducted our 2nd communications poll in July, just to get feedback from staff and really have them let us know what they want to hear about, what they're interested in, what they want to see and hear about on the podcast and in the newsletter. And then the next slide just shows about all the training that we go to. You can see up in the right-hand corner, that's Brandon and Jeff and Mohammed. They all did the core training last year. This was them. They were in Cincinnati. They came after the training, they came back here and I had them on the podcast and I interviewed them so they could share with all of us what they learned. We do a lot with our friends at MMANC, that's us down there on the top and bottom. I think the next slide. So, yep, there we are. We attend career fairs. There's a picture of Marco and I up on the right hand, or I guess Marco's not in that one. Marco was with me on that one there, and we were at Los Medanos. I guess he's behind the Zoom square. But we were up at Los Medanos talking about that OIT program that Victoria mentioned earlier. And if you tune in on Friday, we're actually going to have Marco. He's one of our operators and has been very much involved in bringing that operator and training program online. And we will be interviewing him about that program Friday. So check that out. What else do we have? So we visited other plants throughout the year. And we've had people come and visit us. So we welcomed Salesian High School and gave them a tour down at the plant. And we also welcomed Richmond High School's Earth team, so a bunch of high school kids that are interested in what we do. But I polled a couple of folks and realized that, you know, over the past few months this year, we have visited East Bay Mud, Napa Sand, Central Sand, Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center, Linda County Water District, Sausalito Marin City Sanitary District. So we're out and about and we're looking to see what other agencies like us, what they're doing, how they're doing it. We're making, you know, developing those relationships. All that's good stuff. So the next slide, more events where we can interact with the community, all of you, and community partners and city employees. We talk to adults, we talk to children, we talk to grandparents, we talk to, you know, we had a city council, Richmond City Council person come out to the event last night. We talked to them, past board members, pretty much anybody who will come by and listen to us talk about West County wastewater when we're out at these events. So they are really important for us to do. They listen to us about the work that we do and our mission, and we're also teaching, especially the kids, you know, don't throw the wipes down the toilet. We play the recycling cornhole game, and we really make them play. So they have a good time and they learn something too. And oftentimes it's the kids that are turning around and teaching their parents and grandparents what they learned from us. This slide here just shows how we honor holidays. We have our own birthday that's coming up in December. So West County Wastewater will turn 103 this December. And I think that's what we're saying right here. And the next slide, just more virtual backgrounds that show our pride and our honor that is so important to us as an agency. We received a lot of positive feedback. The Public Works, that was the next one. So our Public Works Week, this was our third year that we celebrated Public Works Week. I think it was new to us, and I did it and felt like I kind of stumbled the first year and didn't quite get the timing right. Not everybody really understood what it was. But this past year, I think we did a good job. And we had it was so big that we had it down at the CSO garage. And we invited some folks from Siege, from Veolia, and from San Pablo Public Works, and they all came, and they had a great time. And we also, of course, invited our board members, and we got really good feedback on that. And so I think that's it. Yeah, so that's strategic goal number 6, and we hope you enjoyed that look down memory lane for the past year. But we still have the rest of the year to go, so we hope that you'll continue to read and listen to the drops so you don't miss out on anything. And I'm going to hand it over to General Manager Andrew to talk about next steps.
Thank you, Kate. Well, first of all, I thank you for the presentation. And I just like to reiterate what was mentioned earlier, is the strategic plan really is the document and the objectives, the goals, objectives, and then some of the milestones that staff creates to implement it is a small portion of the work that we actually do. Much of the baseline operational work doesn't specifically show up as tasks in the strategic plan. And we've given presentations on the capital project update, GIS, the Restoration Authority grant will be coming with the PSLA update. Those we'll continue to do, and you'll get more details and more specific. But what the strategic plan, when it was put together 5 years ago, to guide the development and the direction, the priorities of the agency, and link it back to that. And I think that what you just saw here tonight, this is really the first time I'm speaking on this item, and this is our strategic plan. but you heard the update from our staff. And that is the primary thing that we've managed to accomplish is, creating the capacity for us to deliver, to improve the organization. You create a capable, flexible, resilient organization. You saw on the one slide, I don't know what it was, Justin, 15 different softwares. We're having to slow down, evaluate, and reconsider, but all of those different platforms, how we manage our finances, how we collect and track data, I go down the list, and I'm not going to do them all, but we've created the new systems, we've created the tools, we've created different training. You saw the conferences and the different things that people are attending. So the organization is in a very different place than it was 5 years ago, which brings us to developing the next 5-year strategic plan. And let's go on to the next slide. And I noticed too late that I repeated the same mistake that I had in the retreat. These are, when we say future policies, just a couple of the types of things that as we move forward with developing the next 5-year strategic plan, like I said, we're in a different position, so what is it that we want to focus on next? We want to continue a lot of the efforts that we've already done, obviously, but what are the types of things that we're going to need to address? Electric vehicle charging, what are the policies on that? We're going to have to talk to the board, find out what you guys want to do. The fleet and recreational vehicle parking is not parking, but the dump station down at the plant. What are our rules and regulations around allowing that to happen? Justin touched on rates and services. We build infrastructure for the next generation. That was sort of the question that Director Weiner was getting at when it's like, hey, borrowing money, well, why should we do that? Well, to some degree, it's because we're living off of the infrastructure that was built prior to us. Unfortunately, we had a gap, as many agencies have, in a period where we didn't maintain the infrastructure very well. But we are replacing much of it, and the greatest benefit is going to be received by the generation after us, not ourselves. And so by borrowing and bonding and some of that, they pay for some of that as well. It isn't just all paid by us today. Board contributions, that just has to do with types of policies you might want to have on donations, et cetera, but not gifts of public funds. And working on the 5-year strategic plan itself. And then the last one, artificial intelligence. Really, what does the board think about that? And what kind of policies do we want to have on that? Much of what you see out there right now, it's vendor-driven. Everything is wonderful and everything is perfect and you need to get it. And if you don't get it today, you're going to lose out and you're never going to be able to catch up. Well, that was Betamax as well. So we don't necessarily have to be out in front to finish first. And so we're going to pay attention and watch that. But where we are with it today, rather than 5 years from now at the end of the next strategic plan, our conversation around artificial intelligence will undoubtedly be very, very different. And so that's the discussion we want to have with the board on how do we want to approach it? How cautious do we want to be? How much do we want to jump in? Which areas are we willing to do right away? And which areas do we want to watch and see what happens at East Bay Mud and Central Sand and the other agencies that have lots of staff to be able to, and our other peer groups within CASA, et cetera, that we work with. And as you see, we're not remaining isolated. We're going out, we're talking, we're engaging, and we're working with these groups. And that's how we can the various symposiums and biosolids coalitions, et cetera, we're very participatory in, but we can't possibly staff and do all that kind of work ourselves. We rely upon many of the larger agencies to do that. And then when we find out what's good and implement it, then we can implement it way faster than they can, so we catch up. So that's our goal. Next one. Questions?
Is that it?
That's it.
That's the presentation? Okay. Let's go in order. Director Weiner, questions, comments?
That was a very good presentation, very upbeat and very positive. I am aware we have made huge changes, been here almost 8 years, and we are a completely different agency, and that's a great thing. And kudos to everybody who participated in all that. I do have one request. I love that GSA drawing where it's all gray with electrical colors showing the density of the population that we serve.
The heat map.
Yeah, yeah, I want one of those for my office wall, please. Other than that, I don't have any further requests or comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director King Meredith?
Thank you, President Alvarado. And to the staff, excellent job. I thought the presentation was really excellent. And for whatever that has occurred through the year, well, through this half of the year, I know we still have a few more months to go, but for everything that has been done, it is excellent. You have all worked very hard. You could see the work. I just thought it was excellent, just beautiful. I really enjoyed seeing the communication piece. That's one of the things that needed to be more broader, and I could see that the outreach has really taken off. And for staff to be all over, you know, in our different districts, it's just been wonderful. So I thought it was a very good presentation at this time. So I thank you, and kudos to you.
Thank you. Director Sudduth?
Thank you. At the risk of repeating, I won't do it. Yeah, it was a great presentation. I will say that I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the work that's gone into improving the image. This was one of the areas of the strategic plan that we really put a lot of work and insight into because we really wanted this one and we really wanted the improvement. And I will say that I personally appreciate your ability the team's ability to take feedback and take it and run with it. And when I say feedback, I mean it very loosely in saying that when somebody says, you know, I would like to have, and not really give you any information, and then you just take it and you read our minds and come up with something, because the new leave behinds that we received, the ones especially for last week, were really good. I saw the ones we got in January versus the ones we received last week, and excellent. So thank you for that. And the last thing I'll say is that, especially the public needs to know, I spend a lot of time in front of federal and state officials, and I really appreciate, especially, thank you, Kate, and Tanya's not here, so I'll tell her too. I can call usually Andrew or our lovely board secretary, Ms. Robin, at any time, or I'll call Ms. Kate, and they'll have a package ready for me at the drop of a dime. And if one of them doesn't bring it, Justin will bring it to me. I mean, they will get it to me if I book a meeting and I'll say, they just told me to come meet with them tomorrow morning. They will have a packet ready for me. And I really appreciate that kind of responsiveness. We didn't have that before. And that really makes a difference, to be able to leave behind information that's done in like a really professional way, not something that I'm printing on my laser printer at home, which is what we were doing. So being able to have something that's really, really professional and that that speaks volumes about our agency. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Rentila?
Yes, I was going to ask Kate if she can come up to the mic. Uh-oh. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the great job you're doing. People don't know how hard you actually work. It's a tough job.
It's not just me. I was thinking about that back there. I help at every single turn, environmental services, everybody in this room, so I don't want to, it's not just me.
No, I agree. Thank you. I wanted to ask you about the podcast, The Drop. Is that available for the public consumption?
No. Yeah, no. So that is not. It is just available to the same folks that, let me make sure I'm saying that right. That is available to staff and board members.
Okay.
So our newsletter, we do have some outside folks that have requested it. And so, they get a very few amount. But no, it is internal and internal only.
No wonder it's so good. Also, I wanted to ask you about there was a 3-minute video, the Clean and Green video
It's part of it.
with our general manager, and I was wondering where we could find that.
Yeah, I can send that to you. So, and that was one thing that we kind of cut out for time, but one of the strategic goals for external communication that was probably pretty important to mention is that we did complete the Clean and Green pages that are part of our website. So now when you go onto the website, the easiest way to get to it is there's a slider, and it's a great big picture of all of you with staff with your hard hats on during the groundbreaking ceremony of the Clean and Green. If you click on that, the video is embedded in that. It's a YouTube video, and I will send it to all of you through Robin, if you would like.
Great, and then I don't think we mentioned that we have a great Facebook page.
Yes, we have a Facebook page. There's just so many more things that I want to do and to improve. I think because I'm doing it every single day, I just want more and I want it to look better. And but thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, anybody that uses Facebook page or Facebook should visit the page. Same name.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to find.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I just want to say that I've been on the board for 8 years, and I've seen the dramatic improvement that we've done in the agency since then, including, the staff we currently have here. That includes Kate and her staff as well. We've just done quite a few things to elevate us and give information out to the public that we just didn't have before. So that to me is a great accomplishment, and I just want to compliment the staff on that and keep up the great work. I mean, it really is. We're doing good things, and let's just keep in that direction. So that's my 2 cents. And we don't have to vote on this because it's just an update. So I'm going to say, why don't we take comment?
Mr. President
Sure.
Alvarado, and if we may, the board, may we applaud them by showing?
Yes, sure. Sure, thank you. And why don't we take a 10-minute recess and come back at 8:30? Thank you.
Andrew.
Yes. I was looking for my water, and I said, oh, I left it down there with the.
You have a...
I'm gonna wait till he takes a drink and go, yeah, it's a little smoky, isn't it?
Do you have an open? Okay, we ready to commence? Yes. All right. All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order. It's around 8:37, maybe? Next item.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is regular calendar item 8, to approve a contract with Convey Incorporated for public relations. Oh, wait a second, I have jumped ahead. We're only at 7.
Yeah.
I see, I was trying to win the bet on when we'd be done. Next on the agenda is regular calendar item 7, to approve a contract with Raftellus Financial Consultants Incorporated for strategic plan development and facilitation services. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments or requests to speak on this item?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 7, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
We've seen you quite a lot tonight.
That's why I didn't say anything.
Justin Lovell, Interim Deputy General Manager. Yeah, just very, try not to keep the presentation brief. So the item tonight is to approve a contract with Raftellus Financial Consultants for developing the next 5-year strategic plan. So we did go through a competitive request for proposal process. We received 8 proposals. Staff reviewed all 8 proposals and narrowed it down to the top 4. And the top 4 proposers were interviewed by ad hoc subcommittee of Vice President Rentila and Director King Meredith. And based on the interviews, Director King Meredith and Vice President Rentila, as well as myself, we all 3 participated, and Raftellus Financial Consultants came out as the top-ranked firm. And so tonight we're just asking the board to approve a contract with Raftellus, a total amount of $63,850 for developing the strategic plan. So happy to answer any questions.
All right, well, before we get to that, Vice President Rentila or Director King Meredith, would you like to add anything as to why this firm was picked, or give some insight on that, just quickly, because I know it's late?
Thank you, President Alvarado. As the committee interviewed, became in agreement with looking at Rentila, they were very close with another interviewer we had, but they were at edge out in the lead for their representation of telling our story, who we are. And that really set the mark, that they could really, they had the instruments, they have the tools to really continue to set us above the mark. So we really felt that that was unusual from the ones that had already presented to us, but that was one caveat, that did it.
Gotcha. Vice President Rentila?
Yeah, I'd like to add that we were provided with a lot of details for each one of these companies, and we took about 10 hours to basically to deliberate and come up with Raftellus, and really what it boiled down for me is that they were all pretty competitive, but the price, we really took a long look at our ratepayers, and that's how we ended up with this firm. So I want to thank you for all the work you put into it and providing us with all that information. And I want to thank Director Andy King Meredith for all her work and participation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Director Weiner, any questions or comments? Director Sudduth?
What's the expected term of the contract?
So we're expecting to have, the work completed by June of 2025. We'll have the term of the contract about a year, just in case, anything delays the delivery of the project.
Is there a caveat if we are not finished? Are they expected to continue until we finish the plan, or is there additional costs if we don't finish within that period of time?
There is a fixed fee cost, so
Their work till they finish?
their work to finish at 63,000 for, based on all the
So if
activities.
it take 18 months, they gotta work for that price? Is
Well,
firm
that
fixed
will
price?
be-
Is it firm fixed price for 15 months, 18 months, 12 months?
Well, I mean, I think if the number of hours greatly increased than what they anticipated, then they might come back to us and ask for an amendment. But we believe that, and they believe as a firm that they'll be able to deliver at the cost that they promised within the time that we would like. There are some timing concerns about like scheduling meetings and board workshops that they've factored into their price. I did talk to them about that, and they said we can make it work, and what our timeline is very reasonable for them.
That's why I asked. They haven't met us yet with our calendars. I just want to make sure that they're not going to increase the price if it can't be done within that time frame. But, okay.
Something to add, Vice President Rentila?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that they were one of the firms that had the most expertise in this field. And Justin, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, just briefly, Raftelli's Financial Consultants, they've been around since the early 90s. They're based out of North Carolina. They do have offices in California, Southern California, but they have staff who are based out of Northern California who'll be working on our project. They're they started out really as a financial consulting firm for water and wastewater utilities. So they've been doing this work for a long time in our industry. So I would say that there's one of the pieces that they bring, the expertise, is the knowledge of wastewater and water throughout the United States. They've done specifically strategic planning for dozens of wastewater agencies across Asia, probably even larger than that, but it's just the basic statistics is they've worked with over 700 public sector agencies in 47 states, and they've done 1,300 different studies, not just strategic planning, but also financial. So they're very well versed in water and wastewater utilities. They know the industry. They have staff who have worked. One of the people who was on the interview, who would be part of our project, was a director in a large, I believe it was in North Carolina, a wastewater utility in North Carolina. They're very familiar with the utility management framework about how to kind of the standard best practices for utilities, so they can help us do some additional framework and just evaluation about how do we stand against that framework. So they have a lot of expertise and they know kind of the work that we do.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no further questions, I'll ask for a motion to approve and a second, please.
I'd like to make a motion to move the item.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll second it.
All right, yeah, it has been properly moved and seconded. Please take the vote.
On the motion by Vice President Rentila and seconded by Director King Meredith to approve item 7, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The motion passes 5-0.
Next item, please.
Next on the agenda, regular calendar item 8, to approve a contract with Convey Incorporated for public relations and outreach support services. Madam Clerk, have you received any written comments or requests to speak on this item?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 8, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
All right, we have a new face at today.
Hi again. Hi.
Justin gets a break.
He's got my backpack, but yes, so good evening again. And right, I am here to talk to you and ask you about agenda item number 8, which asks for your approval of a contract between West County Wastewater and Convey, Inc. for communications program, public relations, and outreach support. So the contract, as it's stated in the agenda that you've read, is for a total amount not to exceed $255,000 for public relations and outreach support services. That's for a 3-year term with 2 one-year options to extend. So for a total amount not to exceed $425,000. And I wanted to give you just a little bit about Convey Inc. They are based in Emeryville. So they are our neighbors in Emeryville. They are a full-service marketing and PR firm. They specialize in creating communications plans. They use behavioral science to target audiences and create meaningful and moving content. We just thought they'd be a really good fit. Again, like I say, they're right here in San Francisco Bay Area, so they're easy to come and visit us to do work. And they have experience working with water agencies and projects and and working with other local government agencies, including AC Transit. We checked out the latest Fast Track website. They created that. And so then a little about the RFP process that you're familiar with, but our staff did go through the proper competitive solicitation process. We reviewed all 3 of the proposals that we received and that were submitted through our OpenGov procurement process. And then a panel of West County wastewater staff interviewed the 3 candidates and reviewed and scored, and then we finally chose Convey Inc. So what we're doing is, we are looking for less in an outside contractor than we have asked for in the past, but the tasks that we do need support with are really essential. So I'll just run those by you real quick. Website maintenance. So, right now, and I'll just talk. But right now, if staff needs something put on the website, if I need to post something, if we put a press release or a virtual background, I can do those things. I understand how to do that. But anything that's beyond that, that's a little bit more major, creating pages, that I'm not trained in that. That is something that we can't do right now in-house. So we have relied in the past on a consultant to do that for us, and we still need that for website maintenance. Also graphic design and printing support. So this consultant would be able to create those brochures and those postcards and the leave behinds that we have in a way that I cannot. And so this would include the lateral. That's the community newsletter that we put out. Our consultant would help with that. And also, things like our letterhead. So things that we can't do in-house is really what we're looking for from this consultant. We're also going to be working on new external-facing campaigns in the next 5 years. Also, our communications strategic plan is coming to its end also. We're in the 4th year of 5, so I'd like to get some help on that as well. And then, trying to be short, but in the meantime, and I know we talked about this already, but in-house we have continued to strengthen West County Wastewater's internal communications. We've talked about the podcast, we talked about the drop, texting the drop. So in the meantime, we're doing okay, but we really could use a little support, and that's what this consultant would bring to us. So there's so much more to do. We're excited about our future, so we're asking that you approve this contract, and I am here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Director Weiner, questions, comments?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Director King Meredith?
No, I don't. President, no.
We'll skip over Director Sudduth right now, but Vice President Rentila?
Yeah, I was just curious, would they be working directly under you, or?
Yes, so, and I could have mentioned that, too. This is as needed, so when we have projects, then, we'll meet about it, but yes, the answer to your question is yes.
Thank you.
And then if there's anything that other staff need, it would go through me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We would refer to that. She's the contract manager.
Contract manager. Wait
Okay,
for-
great.
Happy to wait for Director Sudduth if she
Yep.
has questions.
We'll give her a second. Okay, fine. Yeah. Could you announce it? Huh? Nicole, you want to give a little update on why Director Sudduth is leaving the room?
Out of an abundance of caution to
Okay.
just be as conservative as possible, she wants to make sure that there's no suggestion that perhaps any other involvement with this contractor related to her professional work might have anything to do with this. So she has decided to step out from this particular conversation. But again, out of an abundance of caution.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm sure the board appreciates that as well. All right, so going for, I'm just looking for a motion and a second to approve the contract.
I make a motion to approve the contract.
And I will second it.
Okay, item's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
On the motion by Vice President Rentila and seconded by Director King Meredith to approve item 8, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The motion passes 4-0.
Okay, next item.
Next on the agenda is regular calendar item 9, to approve a travel request for Director Sudduth to attend the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute's leadership conference in September 2024 in Washington, D.C. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments or requests to speak on this item?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 9, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Director Sudduth, are you ready to provide some information regarding these events?
Sure. What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm sorry.
On the travel request, if you just
Okay,
had some
travel
comments about what it's for and how it relates to
All right,
district business.
Sorry. 9.
Item 9.
Yes.
And that's why I said, are you ready? Take your time. We know you just
All
walked.
right. Okay, thanks. All right. So both of these are very similar. The Congressional Black Caucus, each year there's an annual legislative caucus. It is the leading public policy convening, national convening that focuses on issues that both the Black community here in the United States, but in all of the Americas and the global Black community. They bring together the thought leaders, legislators, influencers, and by invitation only to elected officials and concerned citizens to talk about the issues and the critical issues, partnerships, and promote all of the political and economic issues that affect Black communities and that will impact what the agenda will be for the following legislative session. It is a nonpartisan group. The Black Caucus is nonpartisan, and it puts forth policies and legislations that ensure equal rights, opportunity, and access to not only Black Americans, but other marginalized communities. I should say that most people think that when you're talking about Black Americans, you're only talking about the United States, but America is North America, Central America, and South America. Just for the record, for those who didn't attend social studies. Because we do, America has territories outside of just the contiguous states. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus is holding its annual, these are usually held back to back, and the theme is Latino Excellence in Action, and it's Innovation, Influence, and Representation, and it is actually a leadership summit this year, and it's also by invitation. And it is very similar to the Congressional Black Caucus. bringing together leaders from across the country in DC as well. And it is also discussing issues very similar that affect not only Latino Americans, but other marginalized communities. It is also nonpartisan, and it's very similar. Thought leaders, legislators, elected officials, influenced and concerned citizens will discuss and address those critical issues that will make up the policies that for the 24-25 legislative session for the Latino Caucus. And as well, I was pleased earlier this year and again next year to be able to participate in the Run to Lead. I didn't run, but I did volunteer. I got a T-shirt, but I did volunteer. I watched the other people run. So I'll watch them run again this year. So I am scheduling congressional visits, as I do every year, to go speak to all of our legislators, and not just the ones from California, but the ones that affect some of the policies that we care about in water, wastewater, environmental, and anything dealing with climate. So this is a good time. They'll be returning to their offices. So that pesky IRA, Justin, we will be meeting on seeing what we can do for our budget. So anything dealing with community, our wildlife, our climate mitigation, protecting flood protection, levee repair, and restoration of our anything dealing with our critical flood safety, especially since we saw some of the watershed climate resilience programs get money cut on the state level. We are going to see what we can do to get more money into the budget in fiscal year 25 or 26. I will let Andrew explain some of that. Water recycling, the budget that came down on the state level, some of that is affected by what's happening on the federal level. And when we talk about conference, we can talk about more about that. But some of our natural and working lands, money for that is going to be essential in combating not only climate change, but protecting here our biodiversity on the levee project, and as we move forward with our clean and green. Do you need more information than that? Please say no so I can stop talking. Thank you very much.
I don't think we need any more information. Questions, comments, Director Weiner?
No, I have no questions.
Okay. Director King Meredith?
I have none.
Okay. Vice President Rentila?
No, sir.
All right, I have no questions either. She gave us a mouthful, and the information was good. Thank you. I'd like a motion and a second on this for approval.
President Alvarado, I would like to move this item. I would like to make the motion to
Okay.
approve the travel for
Thank you.
Director Sudduth.
Can I have a second, please?
I'll go ahead and second it.
Okay, the item has been moved and properly seconded. Please take the vote.
On the motion by Director King Meredith and seconded by Vice President Rentila to approve item 9, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Next item.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is other business, item 10, which includes receiving the check register report for June 2024, July 2024, and the quarterly investment report for the quarter ending June 2024. Madam Clerk, have we received any comments or requests to speak on this item?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 10, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Okay.
Okay.
Staff are available to answer any questions regarding the check register and quarterly investment reports if the board has any.
Okay, let's see. Director Weiner, questions?
Yeah, we haven't heard from John Haig in quite some time. What's he currently working on for the district?
You mind answering that question, Michael?
Good evening. Michael Savannah, the Director of Infrastructure and Planning. John Hague is a consultant that supports us on numerous initiatives. A lot of what John has been supporting us on recently has been around staff development, supporting us with working on some of our, the term is
When we had
escaping me.
out-of-class assignments,
Yes, and we would call that
or succession planning, I'm not
succession
sure which
planning.
you're.
There we go. That's what
Playing
I'm looking
charades
for.
here.
So John's been helping us a lot with those types of things. So some of our succession planning, John served as a mentor and a coach during our out-of-class assignments in IMP. John helped us to review and develop some of our out-of-class assignments and structure them in a way that would help with the succession planning. So that's a bit of what he's been working on the current invoice.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Andrew.
Director King Meredith?
I have none.
Okay.
Thank you.
Director Sudduth? And Vice President Rentila?
No questions, thank you.
No questions here either.
Okay, Aaron, you mind coming up and telling us who you are? And I think they all know, but for the record, be real quick.
Thank you, General Manager Clow. Good evening, board and staff. I'm going to talk just a little bit tonight under our reports from staff about equipment failures and that type of thing, capital planning. It's going to be short, but I'd call your attention first to the shot up on the screen there. And it's a little bit hard to see, but actually that's much better. If you look to the middle center of the screen, there's two blue channels that are flowing to the right, and there's actually two more above that you can't see clearly. So those are our secondary sedimentation basins. Late last week, over the weekend, we had a failure in one of those basins, and as a matter of fact, it's the one on the bottom. And I want to keep this short. It's difficult for me sometimes, but if you look to the left of those basins, those are two aeration trains, and those contain the activated sludge, our biology that gives us most of our treatment. So from there, the activated sludge flows into those four tanks that you can see the two of on the right. So I mentioned that we had a failure. And unfortunately, the failure occurred just less than a week after we had put another one of those four tanks online. After basically what we went through is a summer inspection and cleaning process. So, Lakeem, if you could go to the next slide, I want to show you what the results of the bottom line impacts are when one of these things fail. Thank you. So as you can see there, that's a collector mechanism. And basically you've got chains and sprockets and these what are called flights that basically rotate, and they take the solids, they move it around, and they allow us to take some of the solids out of the tank, remove them from the process, and a certain amount of those solids are put back into the process. So the bottom line is there's probably 140 of those flights, and you can see, if you look closely, there's 3 different sets of flights, and we were lucky that only the center one basically collapsed. And what happens is the thing keeps going, and until somebody spots it or they can respond to alarm, it continues to do damage to the system. So, this, if you don't mind going back again, Lakima, to that previous slide, it's not critically important, but that whole section of the plant is called our secondary sedimentation basins. It's critical to clarify the water and remove all the solids, as I previously mentioned. And the 2 bottom sedimentation basins are circa 1970. The 2 top ones are circa 1980. And it's all original equipment, with the exception of some, the repairs that we've done, some, chain and link replacements and that type of thing over time. But that is the last that is the last process system in the treatment plant that is yet to be upgraded, once this Clean and Green project is complete. And I'll just one more note. What happens is we've got 7 maintenance personnel. And so basically now for the next week, most of those 7 are diverted into, their attention into trying to get this Humpty Dumpty back together again so we can, get through the wet season. And I'll close by, and let me just back up a little bit. We can get by with one of those process units down, and possibly even two, during the dry season. But once we get into the wet season, it starts to rain, we get high flows through the plant, that's when we're going to have a little bit of a problem. And it's not clear at this point if we'll be able to get that system back up and running before, it'll take at least a couple months, but if we're lucky, we'll be able to do it before the wet season. So just wanted to summarize by saying, this has been on our capital plan. It's funded. It's been partially designed. It's still going through the design process, but we won't be able to get to starting the project until sometime probably middle of next year. So anyway, part of this was to just let you know about that, that failure and that we're in that situation for the time being, but also just to give you a sense for the basins that we're looking at. Those are almost 200 feet long, actually just over 200 feet long and about 30 feet wide. And so it's just an enormous amount of manpower and just concerted effort to get that thing fixed, if in fact we can do that. So the bright side is we're planning to start reconstructing that whole system next year. It'll take a couple of years to do, but that's where we're at. And I don't know, General Manager Clow, if I missed anything.
No, this is the part where you start going longer and he's a wealth of information. I see that Michael has something to add. Thank you, Aaron.
At risk of Aaron stepping on your toes, and I hope I'm not, I just wanted to clarify something Aaron said. I think we have funding right now for the design. I don't know that we've actually locked in funding for the actual construction.
And that's a perfect segue to, when are we coming back to talk about capital projects prioritization and funding, Justin?
If we want to have a rotating microphone. Well, we'll be talking about that in September. So the next scheduled board meeting, we're planning to talk about capital prioritization for the next year.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a perfect example of what we were referring to when Justin was talking about being cautious and saying that we have some funds and we have things in reserve, and here's a project that we'd actually planned and we just can't keep up. Humpty Dumpty keeps falling off the wall, and we keep trying, we're getting closer, but we want to be certain that we have prioritized the capital program, we have enough reserves for other emergencies like this that will happen, but also be able to continue the program, and then we'll project out into the future what our needs might be to continue a robust capital improvement program, but that all of those 7 maintenance workers and everybody else is fully covered, fully paid for, including all the project managers within the project unit. We cover all that. It's just how much of the construction cost in particular, because that's when the big dollars start to come into play.
All right, thank you.
And before Aaron walks away, we'll also say that as another part of the report here, on August the 29th, Aaron will be participating at the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board. And now I'm going to,
Nutrient
why don't you,
removal
there we go.
workshop.
Yes, I was going to read the title here.
Please.
The Relating Fundamentals of Biological Nitrogen in Sludge Plants. Aaron will be one of the
Sounds like a
speakers at the
mouthful.
Water Board for an all-day training session, talking about a case study on our system. I imagine he'll probably talk about this failure. I think that's, anything else on that for Aaron?
Questions at all?
Any other questions? Anyone have questions?
I heard that Gorilla Glue works really well.
Yeah. I'll bring that back to the maintenance shop. Thank you.
And I just have a couple of other quick announcements, and then we'll move to the next item, and that is mention Aaron speaking on August 29th at the training session. On August the 12th, at the plant, we'll be hosting the next meeting of the Bay Area Biosolids Coalition and also providing a tour of plant facilities. On August the 14th, on Wednesday, we'll be hosting the Transforming Shorelines Collaborative. They're a core team. It's a program that's implemented by the San Francisco Estuary Project, or Estuary Partnership. There are a series of roundtables that they hold around the bay talking about the various issues around sea level rise, coastal resiliency. And last week, we were at the CASA conference and did a presentation along with Nicole, our general counsel, on project delivery methods, and specifically a case study around our design, build, lump sum project, the Clean and Green project. And that is all we have from staff, and we're ready to move to the next questions from the board.
I don't think so. No questions, but just want to compliment you again on that presentation. It
Thank
was
you.
wonderful.
The final item on the agenda is item 11, director's comments, meeting reports. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments or requests to speak on this item?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 11, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Let's start with Director Weiner.
Thank you, President Alvarado. I attended the County Board of Supervisors meeting, West County Mayors and Supervisors Association meeting in Pinole, the CASA conference in Monterey, and the El Sobrante Chamber of Commerce since our last meeting.
Would you like to elaborate on the CASA conference?
Oh, I was not prepared, but I do have notes.
Yeah, you can just ad lib.
If you want me to spend the time.
Yeah.
First of all, it was my first CASA conference in quite some time, and I enjoyed meeting all the people that I had come to know from the previous times. The big, I literally was so excited about some of the information that I couldn't sleep the first night because it set me thinking about things, larger things than I have any control over, but things that I'd like to see happen, particularly regional food waste diversion and solid digestion. I'm sorry, digesters. The biosologist, I went to the biosolid management conference. They talked a lot about PFAS, which will be some unknown thing. They're hoping to save us from any liability because we didn't create the problem. It just falls to us. I went to the legislative committee, which also talked about liability, wipes, and cybersecurity, hardening water infrastructure. We'll have funding. NDAA, there might be some money stuck onto that. Huerta? I'm not sure what I said there. Let's see. Yeah, it talked about some of the internal politics on the matter. I talked to the chief lobbyist and asked him what he thought of further monies coming for infrastructure, and he thought that the chances of that happening were 0 and none. So whatever is in the IRA will be what will be distributed over time. And I'm hoping that there was very little taking into account the change in presidential race, and I'm hoping that could also affect infrastructure funding going forward and other matters that affect the people of the United States.
Okay, thank you. Director King Meredith?
Thank you, President Alvarado. I also attended the Empowering Through the collaboration, the 69th annual conference, CASA. Few of the topics that I got a chance to sit in was the biosolids, and Director Rainer just Bravigate, he just spoke on that. So we're just about in the same setting, but the biosolids and what it's had to do with the uses of using for irrigation and other important things. The other thing was I got a chance to attend another session that was the legislation piece. And one of the things that I really got out of that, to be looking forward to the labeling that is on the floor now to be passed, to make it clear about wipes. So that's one of the pluses that legislation is getting ready to do. They have all the labeling to speak on what to flush and what not to flush on containers that goes out into the public. The other was, I think it was a couple on biosolids, legislation, and just due to the time, I'm going to end it for the conference, but it had great information that to bring back and to utilize, in the next following months. The other thing I had a chance to on Zoom, the San Pablo City Council was very interesting. We had the fire marshal to expand on what they're doing with training for their staff, getting them ready when they have different situations. That was very good. The other, they spoke about with Contra Costa College and their contribution and collaboration with their training and internships and connecting with skills in order to obtain jobs. And a National Night Out.
Okay.
I attended. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Sudduth?
Usually I'm fine with this part, but it feels like punishment. Several of the board meetings, what do you call them? Board of Supervisors meetings, I attended those. The West County Mayor's meeting, the, I can't think, COWF meeting, of course, the CASA annual conference, including at the CASA annual conference, I attended the CSRMA seminar, which we've talked about before, why it's important to attend that, which has a lot to do with our insurance. And they call it a training seminar, even though I guess it's training, I don't know. While we were there, I also attended the Women's Networking event that CASA holds, and the CASA Education Foundation Board meeting. I attended, along with President Alvarado, the financing and project delivery funding sources breakout session, and a regulatory deep dive dealing with nutrients. The progressive design builds with the General Counsel and our GM on the panel, which was really interesting. I have notes on it. I know that a couple of directors were in a different breakout session, so if you want the notes, let me know. I'll send them over to you. We call them Cheryl notes, not Cliff notes. And the state legislative committee meeting was really interesting. It went overtime. Most of it was talking about the state budget, which had a lot of information regarding again, what is included to address the budget, and then for water and wastewater, in particular, that's what was $8.7 billion committed over several years back in 2021 under the Budget Act, is now down to 6.7 billion of those investments over several years. This year's budget was trimmed down to 1.4 billion. So you can see where we are. In case you didn't hear that, in case you missed it, we went from 8.7 billion to 1.4 in the general fund. That reduction is also gave us 539.1 million in fund shifts across various programs. It includes 189.1 million in one-time investments to support flood protection, levee repair, and restoration of Salton Sea. All of that in 189.1 million. We also get flood protection monies. A lot of this is in the general fund. If you don't know what that means, it means that it's in the general fund, which means it also can be taken and used for something else. We did get some watershed climate resilience money, water recycling money, water storage, dam safety. The general manager mentioned something about dam safety a meeting ago, and nature-based solutions, and money for extreme heat. How that affects us, we can find ways to make all of this work for us if we word it properly, which is what I know I do best when we go talk to legislators, right? Director King Meredith. And community resilience, which is something that we look forward to, how we, our climate adaptation strategy, which we as a board will be talking about of how we approach that to get money for our community resilience programs. Because the new budget reflects $105.8 million of general fund reductions, so there's only $42.5 million for climate resilience. And then coastal resilience, again, that speaks to what we're going to do with sea level rise. Going back to the other things that matter to this district, which should matter to this district, when we talked about, there was a lot on the federal level, but sticking to the state level, there's Prop 4 and SB 867. They broke down the climate bonds that are coming forward on the November ballot that everyone should be paying attention to. I won't break it down, but I'm hoping that General Counsel will be able to give us an update on that at one of our future meetings. Inadequate sewer systems was brought up, and that is something that we should be paying attention to. That's under AB 805. And then housing fees and how that affects us, because on unpermitted developments under AB 2533 is going to affect us with ADUs and junior ADUs, and how that affects wastewater systems when there's unpermitted developments that still need connections. So there was a lot of conversations about that. They still need connections, even though they're unpermitted. And so whether they're ADUs or junior ADUs, some of them, this bill will say, okay, well, go ahead and connect them, but still charge the fees. So that conversation was pretty robust, I'll use that word. And then artificial intelligence, SB 1047, Wiener's bill, is still in flux because they haven't figured out a really good model for having safe and secure innovation for Frontier Artificial Intelligence Models Act. They're still trying to figure out how to get that without infringing on innovation. The last couple was on hydrogen, how we're using hydrogen in our different communities, and biomethane, the procurement. AB 2514 is procuring biomethane in the work that we do. And then AB 2557 is, this one is a labor bill that is going to restrict the local agencies' use of contracts for special services and temporary help. I believe Justin may have brought this up before. I think we talked about this one before. And right now, that one is getting a lot of fight between special districts and the legislature and labor unions. And there's a view on the federal level that I believe you heard about earlier. The only other thing I will tell you is that it looks, John Garamendi's bill to get NPDES permits to 10 years looks very good for passing on the federal level. So I'm tracking that one. And Senator Padilla has made low-income ratepayer assistance one of his major priorities. So that one looks really good for passing. And then again, the WIPES legislation on the federal level is making major traction. It will follow the California model. As Director Weiner mentioned, PFAS rules and Superfund liability is still making its rounds on the federal and the state level. What that means for us, we will find out soon. And then the last one is, I'm hoping that the General Counsel will clear this one up. It's been talked about a lot, the Loper Bright and the Corner Post decisions by the Supreme Court, but how that affects us on this level is still yet to be determined. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Rentila?
Sure, I'll try and be brief. I also went to the CASA conference, and it sounds like everything has been covered. So the only thing I wanted to address about the CASA conference, for those that are not familiar with it, it's a big conference for districts across the state, and their classroom environment where you go to various breakout rooms, and you get to hear law firms talk about specific topics. For example, our law firm, Hanson Bridget, thank you for your presentation. It's very, very good. And then I got to commend our general manager for his presentation on the Green and Clean project and the North Richmond Living Levy conversation. It was very good. So moving on, we did have National Night Out last night. I want to thank Kate and her crew, Claudia, and for coming out. It was a great turnout, and we hope to see West County Wastewater out there again. And then for Hilltop, I wanted to mention that I was in talks with Prologis, the owners of Hilltop Mall, and for the next 3 years, they're planning on bringing in Glideway, which is an autonomous vehicle company. They're going to be programming vehicles up here, which is very interesting. And then, there was a Hilltop, the Hilltop Strip Mall where Ross is, was bought for $39 million. And they're trying to figure out whether they're going to redevelop it or not. But they bought the strip mall out, the parking lot across the street, and then the movie theater here in Hilltop. So hopefully they'll put in housing, which is vastly needed. And then also West County School District, a 7-Eleven committee, we're talking about workforce housing, which will bring some work for us as well. So thank you. That'd be my report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I attended on July 18th board retreat with my fellow board members. July 18th, I attended ad hoc committee where we interviewed firms for the GC evaluation via Zoom. On July 26th, we had a WCW special board meeting, very quick board meeting, might I ask? On July 31st, August 1st, and August 2nd was the CASA conference in Monterey. There I attended much of the same classes that we've already discussed, but I'll just go briefly and tell you what I did. First was the financing and project delivery. And then in the afternoon on July 31st, we did the design build that was given by Hanson Bridget and As mentioned previously, Andrew Clow, our general manager, had a presentation also regarding West County, which was excellent, very well done. Let's see, next day, there were several things going on that day. We had a keynote address. We had an afternoon session regarding resilience and actions, carbon and energy management. And there was another one after that, the future of water, a national perspective. And that was that for that day, for me anyway. And then the following day, we had our closing session where we learned quite a few things about the legislative agenda and also on the national agenda, which was pretty interesting as well. Okay. Then in August, was CASA as well, but San Pablo Council meeting on August 5th. And at that meeting, I also presented to the council the brochure that we had made with all our projects and offered them the opportunity for West County to go before the council and give a presentation. And the general manager the city manager from San Pablo is going to be contacting our general manager to make that happen either in September or October. And I guess that's a wrap for my meetings. Thank you. And I think that brings us toward the end. Madam Clerk, do we have any announcements?
Sure, just that the August, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. So all the August committees have been canceled. And the regular board meeting of August 17th, I believe, and September 4th have been canceled. And so we'll resume committees in September, with the first being Special Finance and Administration Committee on September 4th, and the IOE Committee will be September 10th. And we will resume board meetings September 18th at 6:30.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we're going to be going on a little hiatus here. The next board meeting for this month and the first board meeting in September will be canceled. And so we'll like the clerk said, the next board meeting will be on September 18th. Okay, and we'll adjourn until then. Thank you. What happened?
Oh, a friend of ours called me.
Oh.